Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I am so excited for those of you who are joining us. My name is Desiree White, and I'm a member of the ARIA Coordinators Team, Anti-Racism in Academia. And today we're going to talk about Learn, which is the third portion of RollApp. So just before we dive in, really quick agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about ARIA and the history, a little bit about the RollApp series and what that means, what the session experience is like if you decide to sign up. And then we'll review our topics that we've already covered in June and July, Reach Out and Listen, as well as diving a little bit into what we're going to go through here in August for Learn, and finally how you can register. So the ARIA timeline. I don't think that I've talked to anyone yet who wasn't impacted by last summer. I think everybody really felt the gravitas, the severity of the police killings and the racial tension last summer. And it kicked off a lot of really important protests and a lot of really important conversations. And along the way, one of our co-founders, Tina, realized that there is a lot of power in having small group conversations, creating these safe places where you can learn and kind of dip your toes in and feel safe while you're learning, because a lot of this stuff can be intimidating, especially if you are someone who really doesn't want to cause harm, right? If you don't know what's correct or what's the appropriate and like most inoffensive way to discuss something, and you're just dipping your toes in, these conversations can be really overwhelming. And there's a lot of power for that in small spaces and feeling safe and being able to grow your skills. So in July, that's when ARIA leadership came together and had the idea of creating these small groups with strangers all across the country, because there's power in getting outside of your social circle. And so we did our first RollApp series in August through January of last year. And we did, I believe we had 45 facilitators, but we had 670 attendees and 118 breakout sessions. So I'm really proud of us for that. It was so much bigger of a success than any of us could have imagined. And so in March, we pulled together a think tank of that same pool of people, all of the folks who had helped us with facilitating or attending or contributing really good feedback during and after sessions. We pulled a bunch of folks together to help us refine the series and to come up with a bunch of improvements. And so finally, this past June, we've kicked off our second series, and that brings us to where we are today. So leadership, I'm sure by this point you've probably seen all of our faces at some point. If you've been following ARIA, you're probably sick to death of us. But as you can see from the school names underneath the images, we are all over the place. So we have Tina, who's with MIT, Salmia, who's with the University of Delaware, Tracy, who's with Notre Dame. I'm here at Rutgers. Jonathan Hardy is with Villanova, and Tanya Bennett is with UPenn. And if you want to find out more about not just us, but the folks who are on our think tank, the folks who are facilitating, and you want to follow us on social media, including our facilitators, you can find a lot of that information at ariajourney.org/thesquad. So what's special about the way that we approach things? We try really hard to be agile and to be very iterative in the way that we develop content, the way that we run sessions. Because we think that having that continual feedback and making points to like change quickly will help us grow and create a better program over time. And the better the program is, the more people we can impact, the more cultural change we can drive. One thing that I really love and that's really special to me is the Learn, Grow, Lead framework. So the idea is that you can make change no matter where you are, like no matter what your sphere of influence is, no matter what your like socio-political power level is, there's something you can do to drive change and to promote a more anti-racist environment from where you are. So when you figure out where you are in these stages, that can then help you figure out what some more concrete steps are as you're going through the way. So are you in like a learning stage where you are sort of figuring out what the pieces are and how they fit together? Are you in a grow stage where you're starting to practice and implement some of the things that you've learned? Or are you in a lead stage where you can help inspire other people and you can bring programs together to help implement bigger changes? And in addition to that, in every session, we try to talk about the what, the why, and the how. So what is the issue we're talking about? Why is it important and how does it impact people? And then how can you make changes and how can you take action on the things that you're learning? So within that, we have our acronym. You'll hear this all the time if you're interfacing with ARIA, RollApp: reach out, listen, learn, act, persist. So we have 5 topics and we teach them over 5 months. It's 100% virtual, currently free, and we do small group discussions, as I've mentioned. We call them safe spaces, but I heard somebody use a term recently at one of our conference presentations. Someone suggested that they be called brave spaces. And I love this, right? Because it takes courage to get into this, and it takes courage to have these conversations and to be open and vulnerable about like the things that may have hurt you if you are coming from the BIPOC angle of this, or the things that maybe you don't know and you're not comfortable asking if you're not someone who's BIPOC. So I'm going to pause really quick before I dive into what the session experience is like and see if we have any questions.
No questions in the chat so far, Desiree. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or just use the raise the hand feature, and we'll be happy to answer and follow through on that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Samia. Okay, so the Rollup experience, what's it going to be like if you sign up for these breakout sessions? I mentioned in the last slide that we had someone very intriguingly suggest that we call them brave spaces, because that's kind of what they are. One of the things that we find ourselves telling people a lot is that you will get out of this what you put into this. So what we advise and recommend before you join your session, you'll of course receive your meeting details, but you'll also receive a pre-session activity. And that's just something to kind of help you sort of prime your brain and give you something to chew on before you get to the session, and something to kind of open up the conversation once you do get to the session. During the session, we have rules of engagement, and those are used to make sure that everybody feels like it's a safe space. Nobody feels like they're being attacked. Nobody feels, or is being excessively combative, for example. And we do give our facilitators the ability, if someone is violating those rules of engagement and making it a non-safe space, to give them the boot. There's no reason why we need to have that there if somebody is actively trying to cause problems. But during the session, you'll review and discuss everything that was covered in the pre-session work, as well as what's in the slide deck for that day. And the sessions are about 90 minutes long, give or take. And then finally, once you complete the session, we give you a post-session activity. And the reason for that is we got a lot of feedback in the past saying people loved what they were learning in the sessions, but they frequently felt like they didn't know what to do with it when they got out. They were just sort of stuck. So by giving you a post-session activity, we're not following up on you. It's not homework. Nobody's going to be like checking to make sure you've done the thing, but it is a tool that you have in your hands so that you can try to practice what you're learning, and you can kind of try to start integrating more anti-racism into your sphere of influence. And we also have a new Slack community, which is exciting. It's not the most hoppin' place yet, but we're hoping it'll get that way soon, where you can talk with other folks who are interested in the things that ARIA is doing. You can share resources, you can ask questions. It's just sort of a way to help fill in the gap between the different sessions so that you can stay engaged. So going back to that point about you get out of it what you put into it, you can kind of see there is a little bit of work required on your part as an attendee, right? Like you should probably plan to spend maybe like a half hour before your session, maybe like a half hour after your session. It kind of varies based on the activity, but spend some time like chewing on it and thinking about it before you get there, because if you don't do the pre-session work, you come to the session and you don't say anything, and then you don't do anything after the session, then you're kind of exactly where you were before the session, right? So if you want to make real change and you want anti-racism to be a part of your sphere of influence, your life, the way you think, your philosophy, at some point you have to start practicing it and thinking about it. And that's what these are sort of gently intending to push you towards. And I have to say, I really, really love them. So I'm going to pause again just to see if we have questions before I talk about previous topics.
Okay, I see a question. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I see a question in the chat about the Slack group. You will get access to the Slack group, but only after you've attended a session. So the reason for that is we want folks to have spent some time with ARIA before they dive right in. But as soon as you get through your session and you complete the feedback form, you'll get access to the Slack invitation. Oh, and I see Samia mentioned that attendees from Listen were really, really excited and appreciative about the pre-session activities, which is great news. So previous themes that we've covered so far. In June, we covered a reach out. And so the whole idea behind reach out is that it's about getting outside of your sphere of influence, right? Like we all kind of live in our own little bubbles. Like tends to hang out with like. And another thing that we've noticed is social media, right? It tends to drive us into these little niches of things that are exactly like us. And it can be very easy, if you're not careful and watching what you're doing, to end up in a bubble. And so Reach Out is all about finding ways to reach out to someone different than you. Obviously, because this is an anti-racism program, we encourage you to reach out to folks in different ethnic groups and different races, but it doesn't matter. You can reach out to all sorts of different identities, right? Like reach out to a different gender, reach out to someone who's in a different socioeconomic class, a different religion, all sorts of different ways. Folks with disabilities, right? You can reach out a million different ways, because the bigger you can make your perspective, the more of humanity that you can kind of like reach out and touch and kind of try to understand and try to empathize with, the easier it gets every time you encounter a different group you've never encountered before, to sort of take it all in and appreciate it. So that's what we covered in June. And in July, we covered listen, right? That's the next step. So you've done your reaching out and you have found yourself a whole bunch of people who are interesting, but are nothing like you. What's next? You have to listen to what they're saying. You have to listen very carefully, take it in. And that's something that is really difficult for a lot of us nowadays. I know I in particular have struggled sometimes with, sometimes in conversation, it can feel like you are waiting for your turn to speak instead of listening and taking in what the other person is saying. So active listening is a skill that pretty much everyone can stand to practice. And if you're interested in more of those topics, you can go to the 2 URLs on the slide, ariajourney.org/reach out or ariajourney.org/listen. We do have one section for each section of RollApp on our website, and it has like videos and resources and suggestions. So it's a really, really rich area to dig through our website if you're curious, and I highly encourage that. So this month's theme is learn. So one thing that you'll notice if you go to our website, which the URL for this one is at the bottom, ariajourney.org/learn. Last year we did themes. We had 4 different themes. In the interest of creating better content, richer content this time, we've decided to focus on one particular theme. So we did a vote and we selected systemic racism. So systemic racism is the combination of institutional and structural issues within the society. And it's really important because it results in systemic distribution of resources, power, and opportunity in the society to the benefit of people who already hold power while excluding people of color. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And you'll learn more about the how, the learn, grow, lead of this topic once we get into the actual breakout sessions for this month. So just in summary, this month we're doing Learn. This is a totally free program. If you work in higher ed, you are eligible to come. However, space is limited, right? We have a smaller number of facilitators this year. And so our a la carte sessions, which is our one-offs, are a little bit more limited. Tickets typically sell out within about 48 hours. We've had some sessions sell out in 24. However, we do have a wait list. And so I would encourage you, if you have an interest in this, but you find that like none of the sessions work for you right now, or the only session that works for you is full, please, please, please sign up for the waitlist. Samia in particular is really, really good about keeping up with our waitlist and our cancellations and making sure that those are made available as soon as possible. And so registration will be open to the public today at 2:30. There are a bunch of emails that are scheduled to go out, but I believe, and Samia, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you can also sign up on our website. And the most important thing for the sessions to keep in mind is that they're not recorded. So this isn't like a webinar where you can, sign up if you're not sure that if you can make it, and then you'll just get the recording later. These are not recorded. It's totally confidential between like the attendees and the facilitator and the coordinator team, just so that everybody feels a little bit more safe. And so with that, I'm going to open it up for questions.
I see a question, Christopher, thank you for the question. Can we get tickets at that website at 2:30? We're having some issues with updating the events plugin on our website. So we're going to be sending emails to as many lists as we can. We have about like 10 or 15 and like a dozen lists that we promote ARIA events on. And so the link will be, the link to sign up for the Learn sessions will be in the emails, and we have, like Desiree mentioned, we have them scheduled to go out at 2:30. So as soon as you see those emails in whichever list you're on, please sign up. And if we signed up for this session, if we signed up for this session, we'll be getting that email. So you mean if you signed up for this information session? Yes, we will be sending out an email to all of the people like you all who've registered for this session, this information session. We'll be sending an email to all of you with the breakout session registration as well. So thank you. Anyone else? Questions?
So when is the next event itself? If you are talking about breakout sessions, I can't tell you that off the top of my head. Those are determined by our facilitators, but they're all in Eventbrite. In terms of the next event for the kickoff, so our next would be ACT, would be at the start of September. So it'll be the first working day of September. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the date is though.
Yeah, so Nirmala, the breakout sessions, we begin them a week after the information session. So breakout sessions will be beginning from the 10th of August, and they'll go all the way till the end of August. And like Desiree mentioned, all of the schedule for that will be on the Eventbrite registration system. And then the information sessions, which is when we give an intro to the topic, that is usually held, like Desiree mentioned, on the 1st of every month, the first working day. And it's usually like at 2 or 3 p.m., typically around that time, Eastern. So.
So it looks like the next kickoff session for ACT is going to be September 1st, which is a Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Oh, you guys are quiet today. Usually we get more questions than this. Well, while we're hanging out and waiting, I just wanted to say this is something that I love very dearly, not just because I'm on the coordinator team. I've also participated as a facilitator and as an attendee last year. And it didn't matter which way you interfaced with the program. It was a really, really powerful program for me. Being able to have those conversations with strangers and hear thoughts that you thought maybe you were alone in having, or things that you maybe didn't know, and you thought you were the only person who didn't know. It's really validating to find other people who have similar questions or similar ideas. And as a facilitator, it's really refreshing to be able to guide that conversation. So if you guys are interested, I totally recommend that you sign up for our email list and keep hanging out with us. We are not bringing on any other facilitators for this series, but if we run the series again in the future, which I expect we will, it's the perfect time to jump in and get involved.
Anyone in our attendees who's a facilitator or who has attended an ARIA breakout session before, this year or last year? You can just show a raise of hands or put it in the chat. It's just a couple of people, and so there's a couple of people who are new and who have attended, so that's great. And we see Daniel here. Thank you, Daniel, who is a fellow facilitator here. Guy has done reach out and listen.
Awesome. We have gotten the question in the past. Somebody asked us if we felt it was worth repeating if you had done the sessions previously. So like if you had gotten to go to all of the sessions in series 1, should you try to come to series 2, or should you just like hang back and let it, let somebody else have a chance to experience the program? We pretty much unanimously agreed, like if you want to jump in, by all means, please jump in. There's always something new to learn. And I know for me, as you move through like the learn, grow, lead stages, there's always something new that you didn't notice before, or something that you hadn't considered before. So there's value in revisiting content, even if you've come and hung out with us before. You never know who you're going to get in a breakout session with an a la carte each day.
Yeah, and a spoiler alert for some of you. I think this month's content, we've really, Tina Pappas has really worked very, very, very hard on this. A lot of research that has gone into this. So we're hoping that this month's sessions really make you all uncomfortable. That is our goal. So, and I don't mean that to scare you away, but that is also meant to provide you a welcoming opportunity, because you're going to be in this space. And like Desiree mentioned, it is a safe space. The rules of engagement is something that every one of you will be going over before you begin your session. And so everyone in that session will hold you all accountable for maintaining that safe space. So yeah, this month's content, we're hoping that you all give us your feedback on how those conversations go and how the pre-session activities go. So thank you all who've been before with us, and do join us again even if you've been in a session before.
Absolutely. Well, we have less than 10 minutes left until the tickets go live and you can reserve your sessions. Does anybody have any last questions before we wrap up? All right. Thank you so much for attending. We appreciate you all and your engagement, and I hope that you find your way into a breakout session and you enjoy that too. Have a great day.